KBLA Talk 1580. Good morning and God bless. I'm Dominic DePrima. This show is called First Things First, and my first thing every single day, giving thanks, giving praise, and asking for blessings from the Most High, asking for the blessings of the ancestors and the elders, and let's go. Let's do this. We do have a lot to talk about on this kind of foggy Thursday. I think you all know what I do around here. If you're new to it, welcome. You're now part of the delegation. Hour one, we go local. We sweep around our own front door. Hour two, we go national, international, and beyond. And in the third hour, we do a deep dive with a person or persons of interest. And typically in hour one, I like to have a partner in politics, someone who can bring some depth and reason to the conversation. Let me put it that way. And today, I'm so happy to have in studio with me, which means you can see us on YouTube, KBLA 1580 right now, Dr. David Turner. He is a scholar and he is an activist, and now he is a PhD. Dr. Turner, good morning.
Hey, what's going on?
I think you may be the only PhD. No, I'm gonna take that back. Doc Melly Mel may also have the Crenshaw shirt, right? Oh. I'm not sure if she does. She might, but he's a different kind of scholar, and you're from Inglewood, right?
Yeah.
So you're actually a real live native Angelino.
Yep, through and through. Pops, grandpa, all that.
That is a beautiful thing. We're going to meet a new friend. We'll see if he's a friend. He's a Republican. Craig DeLuz will be with us in hour three. He is a Republican strategist, and we're going to talk about Tucker Carlson, Don Lemon, and all that good stuff. So I like to start with what's good. You know that, and you have so much different kinds of work going on. Aside from your work as a researcher and an activist, you work with boys and men of color and as a manager of Brothers, Sons, Selves Coalition. There's so many different things you got going on. What's good? What's inspiring you? What's putting a smile on your face right now among the work?
Man, a bunch of different things. Well, I have since transitioned out of the Brothers, Sons, Selves role, and I'm excited to let the world know that a Mr. Christian Green is going to be taking over for me as the manager of Brothers, Sons, Selves. So,
okay, nice.
Really excited about that. A real good brother from the Antelope Valley. Has a lot of experience with abolitionist organizing out there. And if y'all know, that is a very different part of LA County. So
it really is. Yeah.
So really excited, for him to be taking the reins, and helping to lead that coalition. At UCLA, I've become a professor in the Department of Social Welfare, and starting next fall, I'm going to be one of two faculty associate directors for the $1 Million Hoods Project.
Wow, congrats.
Working with Dr. Kelly Lotto Hernandez, so that's really exciting. In addition to that, I've recently been named senior advisor for the Alliance for Boys and Men of Color. So the Alliance for Boys and Men of Color is a statewide and a national policy alliance of over 200 organizations working to improve conditions for boys and young men and their families and communities across California. So really excited to be working with the folks over at the ABMOC to change state policy. I'm working on some different things to change school discipline practices, where we are shifting school suspensions, as well as working on some different juvenile justice and community schools initiatives to make sure that we can invest in our schools and in our young people the right way. So wow. Really excited about that. And at the top of everything, we have a really big presentation today.
We'll get to that. Budget. We'll get to that. Yeah, the meeting with the mayor is coming up today. I want to talk about that. I want to encourage people to get involved, because it's not too late. You could still submit your answers. I want to get into all of that. Before we move on to that, though, explain what $1 Million Hoods is.
Absolutely. So the $1 Million Hoods Project is a research and community collaborative founded by Dr. Kelly Lotto Hernandez, MacArthur genius at UCLA in the history department. The $1 Million Hoods Project is a project working not only to map the fiscal and human cost of incarceration, but also is working to provide communities with the tools, strategies, and resources that universities can provide in order to supplement their organizing for abolition, in order to supplement their organizing to transform carceral systems in our communities, right? So when we say carceral, we're talking about the interlocking web of institutions, right, that harm communities through punishment. So that's police, probation, courts, prisons, county jails, right? It's this interlocking web that prioritizes punishment over people. So we're working with a number of community organizations, right, to provide them with the data and some of the infrastructure necessary in order to transform these conditions.
You got a lot on your plate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he says with a smile. We do want to get into that. It's a big day. Mayor Karen Bass will be joining representatives from a number of community-based organizations that are part of the People's Budget LA under the leadership of Black Lives Matter LA. She will be in Leimert Park to meet with the community and talk about the People's Budget right in the middle of budget season. This is a pretty cool precedent that's being set right here, and I want to get your thoughts on it when we come forward. You know where you are. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominic DePrima when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580 would like to thank all of the businesses that tune into KBLA at work. We celebrate you, your calls to the station, and your overall support. To show our appreciation, we would like to treat your office to a lunch for 10, brought to you by the Original Taco Pete's. Open the KBLA Talk 1580 app or log on to KBLA1580.com to submit your office to be selected for our Office of the Week. We know you're just like our staff, putting in many hard, smart working hours per week. We just want to say thank you, and we appreciate you. You and your staff deserve lunch on us. Enter your office to win lunch for 10 and be highlighted on KBLA Talk 1580 as our Office of the Week. Open the KBLA app or log on to KBLA 1580 to enter your office today to become the KBLA Talk 1580 Office of the Week, sponsored by the Original Taco Pete's, a Black-owned restaurant. Become the KBLA Talk 1580 Office of the Week. This has been a KBLA Talk 1580 community call to action.
I know it's gonna happen without you.
Periods don't care what you're doing, but your pads should. Get Always Triple Protection System in Always Day and Night Pads. Always Day Pads protect when active by wicking away gushes 2 times faster than leading store brands and giving us up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort. When we size up our pad at night, we get the same triple protection, plus up to 75% more coverage in the back for when we're laying down. No matter what, Always has you covered, day and night.
Wireless headphones. That'll be $200.
I'll use my Capital One Quicksilver card.
Now that's a hit. You used the Capital One Quicksilver card, which makes you the hero of every purchase. With Quicksilver, you earn unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere.
I wanted running music, but unlimited 1.5% cash back is pretty heroic.
Good instincts. Every hero needs a theme song. The Capital One Quicksilver card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
The FAA will be hiring air traffic controllers soon. Applications open June 24th through June 27th. If you know someone between the ages of 18 and 30 who might be interested, please tell them to go to www.faa.gov/BE-ATC to apply today. The salary range is $103,000 to $164,000. There's also paid training and school. Again, that's www.faa.gov/BE-ATC. Again, that's www.faa.gov/BE-ATC to apply to be an air traffic controller. This community call to action is brought to you by the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals and KBLA Talk 1580.
Their ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show. co-host. Let's get back to Dominique DePrima right now.
Right now, they probably already know this, Dr. Turner, but let's do the basic for our new KBLA delegation members. The people's budget is...
The People's Budget is a participatory budgeting process where the People's Budget LA Coalition, led by Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, has been working to survey the community to see exactly what it is that communities want to invest in when we talk about public safety. So what tends to happen is that nearly 50% of our city's budget continuously goes to law enforcement. And one of the things that we want to do, that we want to prioritize, is that we know our communities can be safer if we reprioritize our budget, if we transform how it is we invest in our community. So what we've been doing over the last 3 years is we have been surveying community members to figure out what is it that they want to invest in? How is it that they want to see their Los Angeles, right? And what we've consistently found is that Angelenos do not want to invest in policing, do not want to invest in the things that are harming their communities. They want to invest in the things that they see is important. They want to invest in the things that they see that matter, right? And this is child and youth development. This is investments in housing. This is economic assistance. This is investments in mental health and wellness. This is investments in our built environment, right? So parks and recreation, public transportation, public works, right? I know I've lost a tire or two, rolling around in these LA
especially
streets.
after this rain, man.
Exactly, so people want to see investments in this, right? And they don't want to continue to see investments in law enforcement. So that is what we're doing with the People's Budget, is making sure that the people can dictate what it is we invest in as a city.
Yeah. So today, first of all, let me ask you a broader question that I haven't asked anyone about this, which is, what do you think the impact has been? What has been the response from city officials so far in the first 3 years to this People's Budget being on the table?
Well, I think first and foremost, the impact of the People's Budget is twofold. First, I think we have won the argument that there needs to be alternatives, right? And included, and again, right, like there are some things that I agree with and disagree with from Mayor Karen Bass's proposals, and I think some of the things that I do agree with, right, are rooted in some of those investments in homelessness and some of those investments in alternatives to policing, and making sure that there can be other versions of unarmed responses. Not a big fan of the community policing thing. Definitely not a big fan of, trying to bring additional cops to neighborhoods and to LA right now. But I think with all of that being said, in terms of the broader arguments, right, around policing, one of the things that we've recently seen is that the budget for policing has continued to shrink. Right, even if it's not as monumental, right, as we would like it to be, it has gotten smaller, and that is a direct result of the advocacy and the organizing of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles and the dozens of organizations who are pushing, who are pushing the city and who are pushing our country, right, to reinvest in communities.
Right, and looking at safety in different ways. I mean, I talk about this with BLM members all the time because I don't consider myself an abolitionist. Mm-hmm. And I understand people getting alarmed about, defund the police. But really, you're talking about care first. That means
exactly
how do we move these dollars to make the community actually safer rather than safer on paper because we just have more and more and more cops. And I'm definitely for that.
Exactly. And so there are a couple of things about that. I think first and foremost, there's a really dope lawyer. Their name is Ashley Washington at the Collective for Liberatory Lawyering, and Ashley refers to the sort of continued investment in policing as this idea of security theater. right?
Yeah.
Where, there is like this performance of safety, but it's not safe. It's not actually safe.
Right.
Right. So what are the things that do make people safe? Right. People having housing, people having access to food and shelter, people having access for their children, right, to have programs and initiatives and things that they can do, making sure that we can have safe and clean neighborhoods, right? Like, these are the things that actually make communities safe. If you roll around, some of the western parts of the city, right, you don't see an abundance of police officers, right? But you do see green spaces. You do see
Clean
nice
streets. Yeah.
Exactly. Clean streets. You see Trader Joe's, right? Like, those are the things that you do see, right? You don't see cops on every other block, but the further you come, toward towards South Central and then further east, right, in other spaces, right, you see more police, and you also see the lack of investment, right, in other areas that we know actually keep communities safe. So for us, one of the things that we want to do, that we want to make sure that we uplift, is that we know that there are other ways and models to invest in real safety. We know that investing in people's mental health and wellness is a critical factor, right, to keep people in communities safe, right, to have alternatives.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the most underrated thing right now, because we're still recovering from the pandemic and people are acting a little wild. And I think not just kids, but adults, this is an investment we're going to have to really make.
Look, and one of the things, right, that a lot of people don't necessarily recognize is that while your race is definitely one of the determining factors in whether or not you can be physically harmed by law enforcement, mental illness, right, is one of the leading reasons why people are physically harmed and or killed by law enforcement. You're 16 times more likely, right, to have a fatal encounter with law enforcement if you are experiencing a mental illness, or if you have a mental illness.
Wow, that's a lot more.
Exactly.
Likely, I haven't heard that statistic before. It's kind of jarring.
And so with that being said, one of the things that's important for us is that, well, why do we keep using cops to respond to mental illness when we know that response ends fatally?
Right.
Right. So, there are other ways we can respond to this, right? If 5-foot nurses in hospitals can handle 6'5", 300-pound men, right, then clearly, right, things can happen differently in our communities, right? There are other ways that we can keep our communities safe without having to rely on the use of violence, on the use of force in order to do so.
I mean, and honestly, LA has been a bit of a pioneer in that area. I mean, when I worked on the Summer of Success in Baldwin Village, I was the program director on the ground for that. Mm-hmm. It was one of the first times, and this was actually under the leadership of Karen Bass, then Councilmember Martin Ledlow, Dr. Robert Ross at the California Endowment, and a bunch of folks, Community Coalition. It was one of the first times you really saw that, where you had community stakeholders plus the gang intervention and community organizers, plus people and persons that are incarcerated that are linked to that neighborhood, in cooperation with the city government and law enforcement. And it was rough because law enforcement was not used to working with others and playing nice in the sandbox. And it was only because we had the commitment of, Karen Bass and at that time Councilmember Ledlow, who would show up and have a meeting with, Southwest and whatever else was needed, have meetings with community stakeholders, to where we were able to see a huge drop. We were able to see the second summer we did it, violence down to zero. So I feel like we're pioneers in this area, but we keep trying to backpedal and go to this super, arrest your way out of everything model that the LAPD also pioneered.
And we know that model doesn't work. right? And not only does it not work, it doesn't prevent violence, right? So to give you an example of a model that does prevent violence, I think that the summer night lights and the summer intervention programs from the city of Los Angeles have been like some of those key things.
Right, and those
here.
were modeled on the Summer of Success. The Summer of Success
Exactly.
was a pilot for that. But one of the things that happened is everybody who showed up could get fed.
Yes.
Anyone from the community who showed up, there's food there, you can eat.
Yes.
Anyone can participate. It wasn't just a bunch of recreation. There's always people there to work with you and talk to you.
Now, the city of Richmond, they did something really unique that should be modeled across the country, right? They were working to pay folks who were directly involved in gangs, who could potentially be involved in versions of retaliatory violence, right? And they paid them to do the gang intervention work, and they brought murder rates in the city of Richmond down to 0.
Yeah, I mean that's what happened in Baldwin Village. It's what you said. It's opportunity, and it's something that where people are involved in the decision making process. We had lots of people from the neighborhood that were working as staff on Summer of Success, and not to say that was perfect, but certainly it's a model that's more in alignment with what we're talking about here. And I think the success of something like SNL or Summer of Success, which is the genesis of that, I should have mentioned Connie Rice, she was part of that, is, also the commitment to it, right? Because you can have Summer Night Lights and just sort of give it lip service and not spend the dollars to make that really be great. And then it's just a waste of time.
Exactly. And just straight up, nothing stops a bullet like a job. And I think it's important for us, right, to invest in our communities in ways that employ people, in ways that invest in people, right? In ways that keep people centered in what we know to be public safety, right? And when we do that, right, we get good results. It's important for us, right, to make sure that we continue to push the city, right, on these investments. And when we do so, right, we can have the safe communities that we want. No abolitionist, right, wants chaos, right? Abolitionists want communities to be safe. Abolitionists want communities to engage in safety, right? To have real safety, right? We just know that that law enforcement, as it currently exists, right, can't provide that.
Yeah. Well, which circles us right back to the people's budget. So today, I think it's 6 p.m. At the Center for Black Power, which is in Leimert Park, right on 43rd Place, not 43rd Street, 43rd Place and Crenshaw, right next to the metro station. The mayor will be there. She'll be going over the people's budget. You can come, you're invited, but if you don't want to come and you just want to have your opinion included, go to the peoplesbudgetla.com/survey. peoplesbudgetla.com/survey. Fill it out. It'll take you 5 to 10 minutes.
Exactly. And we need your opinions. We need to know what it is that the people of Los Angeles actually want to invest in. So please, please, please go to peoplesbudgetla.com/survey and let us know how you want to invest resources in the city of Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean, there's something easy to do, right? You could do it before you leave the house. Let's get that data in before meeting with the mayor. I want to, after news, traffic, and sports, Dr. David Turner, I want to get your thoughts on this stunning revelation out of Santa Monica. They're paying $122.5 million to children who suffered from sexual abuse at the hands of a police employee. That's next on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominic DePrima when we come forward.
Thank you for sharing a part of your Thursday morning with us here on the Black Information Network. I'm Mike Moore. Now, here's the latest. The House is approving Republican Speaker Kevin McCarthy's bill to raise the nation's debt ceiling. The bill passed Wednesday includes a $1.5 trillion debt limit increase with a package of spending cuts. Democrats are calling on Republicans to raise the debt ceiling without conditions to avoid a default in the coming months. New York City Mayor, African-American Eric Adams says he sees no problem with President Biden's age. It comes after the president announced he'd be running for re-election in 2024. Adams called Biden's age excellent, saying the country needs wisdom, skill set, and experience. Meanwhile, Biden says he feels good and excited about the prospects of a second term. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Calling all night owls, Buffalo Wild Wings is open late. Fill up on some tasty apps with an ice cold tall beer starting at $4. Late night food and drinks start at $4 from 10 till close at B-Dubs. Limited time at participating locations. Offers, days, and times may vary. Drink responsibly. Void where prohibited. Tax and fees extra.
Is this the tackle? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers did not play like a team that wanted to close out their first-round playoff series. They lose by 17 last night in Memphis. The Lakers made only 10 of 39 three-pointers, including a 1-for-9 performance by LeBron. The number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference is out. Milwaukee loses by 2 at home in overtime to number 8 seed Miami. First time a number 8 knocks out a number 1 in the NBA playoffs since 2012. Golden State wins by 7 at Sacramento to go up 3-2. The defending champs can close out the Kings at home Friday night. The NFL draft kicks off tonight in Kansas City. Alabama quarterback Bryce Young, a Pasadena native, is expected to be the number 1 pick of the Carolina Panthers. The Chargers have the 21st pick in the first round. The Rams don't pick until the second round at number 36. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm young, gifted, and black. KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action is the youth component of the impactful CBO, known as the Community Coalition. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action has chapters at almost every South LA high school. Say Yeah, as they are popularly known, is located at 80th and Vermont, but serves young people all over South LA. Under the COCO umbrella, they train youth organizers, help underserved scholars prepare for college, and work with students to help them gain admission to top universities. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action fosters teen activism, where young people have led campaigns moving tens of millions of dollars to South LA schools and forcing officials to make AP classes available to students in under-resourced institutions. SCES scholars have taken part in the March on Washington, been published in major news outlets, and been elected to city council. Long before she was mayor, Karen Bass started the program when she founded the Community Coalition. To donate, volunteer, or enroll a student in South Central Youth Empowered Through Action, please visit cocsouthla.org. cocsouthla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Thanks to our new sponsor, Lendistry. Lendistry is a national Black-led small business lender that is headquartered in Los Angeles. Lendistry helps small business owners access the affordable capital needed to grow. Visit Lendistry, LENDISTRY.com/KBLA today.
Are you between 18 and 26 years old and trying to find out how you're supposed to make all this work? If you've said, I need a job and some transportation, rent, it's so high. Food too. There's childcare and I need to go back to school. I need to transform my life. Well, help is on the way. Transform Your Life Day is coming Saturday, April 29th at San Manuel Stadium. It's a shopping mall of free community services where you can talk with programs and even enroll right on the spot. It's free help for young adults to get you started on meaningful careers, finish up your diploma or your college degree. There's help with finding housing, transportation, food, and childcare. Plus, you get a free ticket to the 66ers game, free parking along with prizes. Get there early for free food. Reserve your free space today at ccc.ca.gov. That's ccc.ca.gov. ccc.ca.gov.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DePrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
So Dr. David Turner is here with me. He is a scholar and an activist, and he's handling a lot of different things through his work at UCLA as a professor there. Wow, would I love to look up and find you as my teacher. He's a professor in the Department of Social Welfare. So, stunning revelation. City of Santa Monica is going to pay $122.5 million to 124 different people who say they were sexually abused as children by a former city employee when he was working with the PAL, the Police Activities League. That'll mean that this one individual, this guy Eric Uller, I don't know how you say his name, he will have cost the city $230 million, just this one guy, for, taking advantage of children, molesting children. And the thing about this that makes it so crazy to me is the fact that there were reports, there were people complaining, and no one did anything.
Well, I think first and foremost, right, and this is one of the greatest challenges, right, that we have in the abolitionist movement, right, is that even with case after case after case after case of folks in law enforcement abusing their power, folks in law enforcement, and people around law enforcement, not even just cops themselves, with them continuously engaging in acts of harm, they're still seen as innocent, still seen as a source of safety and solace in communities. And to break this down a little bit further, right, in this particular case, right, like they're with the PAL, right, like they're running programs and engagement where young people are a part of it, right? Where communities are a part of it.
And where parents
right?
feel safe taking their kids there.
Exactly, right? And we want to trust the folks who we leave our children to. And one of the things that we've continued to see, right, is that law enforcement is not like they continue to violate that trust. To give you another example of what this looks like here in LAUSD, right, there is a program called Building Blue Bridges. And one of the things that they did, right, was after the murder of Keenan Anderson, and after the video went viral for Tyree Nichols, they orchestrated a field trip where Black students then had to march with other cops.
Yeah, we talked about that. It's just terrible.
Yes.
And the parents didn't know what the kids were going to do.
And the parents
and the kids didn't know. That's crazy.
And the parents and the young people didn't know, right? But again, right, like this Building Blue Bridges program, which which tries to pride itself on real, engagement with communities and like working to build relationships between law enforcement and communities of color, especially Black ones, right? What did they do? They violated that trust. And when the young people were feeling the most unsafe around law enforcement, they brought them to like other cops to then have a dialogue about it. And it's just like, why would you do that without even informing them what is going to happen? So, So I say that, right, and I want to make sure to underscore this point as well, that Daniel Holtzclaw, who in 2015, was tried and convicted for sexually assaulting black women. There was a young woman in the case when she was giving her testimony. She had said, "Who do you go to when the police are the ones that's harming you?"
Yeah, because Mr. Holtzclaw was a cop
Exactly.
who was actually convicted of raping.
Exactly.
Black women. That was what he did. He's in prison right now.
Exactly. So one of the young women in the case, she had said, "Who do you go to when it's the police that's doing the violence, when
Right.
it's the police that's doing the harm?" So I think in the case of this particular person with in Santa Monica, Euler, and as the case continues to happen, one of the things that we're going to see and that we should continue to see, right, is that I think we need to rethink what our relationships, right, with law enforcement are, because the more we continue to legitimize it, the more we continue to try to say that was just one person, right? That was just one bad apple, right? Like, it continues to legitimize an entire system that allowed this to happen.
Yeah.
For years.
In that Holtzclaw case, each victim only got $18,000, which was a lot of victims because they paid out $130,000. I think, you're right. It's many of these assumptions that we make. Okay, that person they're part of the police athletic league, or they have a badge, so they must be safe. Some people make that assumption. But the fact, this is mostly Latino children, some African American children that were molested by this guy in low-income neighborhoods. And you got to wonder if, had these reports and complaints happened in Brentwood, would we have seen some investigation or some action sooner? Because he was doing this since the 80s, and the complaints go back to the 90s.
Well, that's the thing, right? And this is one of the things that I think, and this is where, as a country, we haven't necessarily engaged race, right? Because, yes, had that have happened in Brentwood, or had that have happened in the Palisades, right, or in Palos Verdes, right, it would be a very different conversation.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
This wouldn't have come to light now, right? Like, it would have come to light when it happened.
I mean, some of these kids were 8 years old, between 8 and 15, and this guy, apparently, he took his own life. He was a police dispatcher, but he volunteered at the Police Athletic League. And I think I told you off the air, these kind of stories just make me want, babysitters that hate kids. Like, just in case you're a pedophile, I need the people that run my programs to be people that can't stand children, but that's their job.
Exactly. I mean, don't hurt my babies. But I understand at this point, because
Right.
It's just like, like, who do you trust your children with?
Imagine 200 people in Santa Monica, the Pico area, which is mostly African American and Latino, 200 people molested by one guy. Now, when we talk about trauma and generational trauma, how many families, how many actual humans are now traumatized by this? I mean, it's got to be thousands, right?
I mean, and this is why, right? And just going back to the people's budget, right? Like, this is why those investments in alternatives, right? Those investments in mental health matter.
Yeah.
Right? Because, when these systems commit these violences, when they commit these harms, who do we go to, right, to unpack these things? Who do we go to, right, to begin to heal from these things, right? I've heard, Black studies scholars say that, when people left, when our folks left plantations, right, there weren't therapists sitting there to figure out, hey, let's unpack what you just went through.
They're still not sitting there.
Exactly, right? Like, so with that being said, right, like, our communities have been harmed, right, by these systems, and that's why it is so critical. It is so important, right, that we have investments in mental health, that we have investments in community care, that we are the ones who are caring for each other, because if we don't have that, right, then we continue to see these cycles of trauma and harm in our community.
Yeah. And Santa Monica claims they've changed their background check for city employees, and they've taken on a child protection policy, which no predator in the world cares about that at all. And so children there are safer today. For me as a mom, I think it's a reminder to all of us, though, to listen to your kids. If they think a person is creepy or they don't want to hug Uncle Jojo, don't make them do it, because they have to have boundaries. They have to be able to protect themselves from predators. When we come forward, there was an interesting article, Dr. David Turner, in the LA Times about what they call hidden expulsions. Love to get your take on that and what we as parents, families, and progressive teachers can do to make a difference, because once again, impacting Black children, particularly Black boys, more than others. That's next on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
This just added to the National Recording Registry. Stick around to find out what queen is getting her flowers. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News, brought to you by Lendistry. If you guessed Queen Latifah, you guessed right. What is the National Recording Registry? Well, since 1850, the U.S. Library of Congress adds notable recordings to the registry each year. This year, 1980s staple songs like Sweet Dreams Are Made of This and Like a Virgin by Madonna, the Synchronicity album by The Police, the Flashdance theme song, the theme from Super Mario, yep, the video game, and Queen Latifah's full All Hail the Queen album. In total, the registry has upwards of over 600 songs.
Thanks to our new sponsor, Lendistry. Lendistry is a national Black-led small business lender that is headquartered in Los Angeles. Lendistry helps small business owners access the affordable capital needed to grow. Visit Lendistry, LENDISTRY.com/KBLA today.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, could potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
Professor David Turner. Dr. David Turner is professor in the Department of Social Welfare at UCLA, and he is a senior advisor for the Alliance for Boys and Men of Color, California. So what they call hidden expulsions, that's what the LA Times call them. And we're talking about lots of Black boys and some Latino boys and girls, but again, these things tend to affect Black boys more than others, being transferred, and I put air quotes around transferred, which is really an involuntary transfer, which is actually getting expelled. And I remember when Eric Holder was Attorney General, there were guidelines put out to stop the excessive expulsion and suspension of black children. And now it seems like they've just gotten slicker with it.
Well, and this is the thing, right, is that when schools, very similar to the conversations that we have about reimagining public safety. When schools don't invest in positive school climates, when schools don't invest in restorative justice measures, when schools don't do these things, they often rely on very similar tools that people use for incarceration. So they rely on suspensions, expulsions, they rely on school police, they rely on these things in order to try to keep their schools functioning. And the challenge is that Black and Latino students continue to be pushed out, right, of schools, right? You know, they had these with opportunity transfers here in LAUSD, right? They have these in different school districts, including San Bernardino City, Long Beach, right, Oakland Unified, where Black students, right, and Latino students are being literally pushed out of schools, right? So one of the things, right, that we continue to see is that when students are pushed out and shuffled around, right, from school to school, it creates this vicious cycle where they can't complete high school. And when they can't complete high school, it leaves young people susceptible to a lot of things, in particular incarceration. There's a 91% chance, especially if you are a Black and male, that if you don't complete high school, you will be incarcerated, right? Now that's crazy. That percentage drops from 91 to 22 if you have a high school diploma. So a high school diploma for a Black teenager, right, a Black male teenager, is quite literally a vaccine, or almost a vaccine, against incarceration, right? So with that being said, right, when we see people getting pushed out, when we see people not being embraced and loved by their schools, what continues to happen, right, is we're leaving people susceptible to all the other harms of society. So it is critical, right, that we continue to address these school discipline policies and practices that are doing these things to harm our children. I want to give a big shout out, to some of, our movement partners, right, like folks over at the ACLU, for example, who are doing work on this, folks at Gente Organizada, right, in Pomona, who are doing work around this. Give a big shout out to Californians for Justice, and the Partnership for the Future of Learning, who are doing work on community schools, right, to transform how it is that we see, right, school climate and school culture. Because when you have relationship-centered schools, when you have schools where young people are embraced and engaged, and you have restorative justice models, right, like, you don't need to rely on suspension and expulsion in particular to manage a school, right? Like, you can use other tools. You have other tools in your toolkit that then allow you to run a school effectively without having to harm entire futures.
Yep. And that's got to be not just lip service. A lot of schools run around here talking about, we practice restorative justice. I call it fake woke. And,
exactly.
Beware of the fake woke, because the more expensive or fancy or exclusive the school, the more likelihood of fake wokeness being a disease there. We're talking with Dr. David Turner, and I want to take a look and get your take on, when we come forward, on this recent sort of cache of documents that have been made public through Freedom of Information pertaining to the LAPD. You have some information beyond just the website and the list of officers' names. Looking forward to that when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the oven on, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's.
Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family was founded to help address domestic violence and sexual assault in the Asian and the Pacific Islander communities. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family's mission is to build healthy and safe communities by addressing the root causes and consequences of family violence and violence against women. They are committed to meeting the specific cultural and language needs of the Asian and Pacific Islander women and their families. CPAF's vision is of an Asian and Pacific Islander community that embraces healthy relationships and works in partnership with other communities to eradicate all forms of violence. To access services, volunteer, or for more info, visit nurturingchange.org. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe everyone deserves to be safe. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Meet Joe A, Joe B, and Joe C.
What's up?
3 everyday Joes perfecting their banking with Chase. Joe A is locking his lost debit card with the Chase mobile app. Joe B is cruising toward his new ride with AutoSave. And Joe C's Chase banker is helping him budget to go back to school. Tools that help protect. Support for what's next. One bank that puts you in control. Visit chase.com/checking. Chase. Make more of what's yours.
Chase mobile app is available for select mobile devices. Messaging and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank, N.A. member FDIC.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio. KBLA Talk 1580.
One of the most surreal stories of this year so far for me is the fact that the LA City Attorney is suing Knock LA and I can't think of the name. The nonprofit organization, Watching the Watchers, that put up the Watching the Watchers website for publishing information that they got legitimately through a Freedom of Information request, and because the police department and the city gave them information they didn't want out, which is these undercover officers, or reportedly, allegedly undercover officers. And now their names and pictures are listed. I don't want people to be in danger, no people, so they should not list those people. But you're going to sue a journalist and a community-based organization for doing what they do? That, to me, is ridiculous. But there's more to this story.
Well, first and foremost, right, I think one of the things that continuously tend to happen, especially around law enforcement, is this sort of blue wall of silence.
Stop
right?
LAPD spying. That's the group I was trying to think of.
Spying.
Yes.
So this blue wall of silence, right, like prevents us from not only understanding how law enforcement works internally, but also what it does is it doesn't allow you to see the inner makings of some of the more harmful atrocities that they're committing in communities on a daily basis, right? To give you an example of what this looks like, as a part of the $1 Million Hoods project that I work with at UCLA, working with Dr. Kelly Hernandez, we were able to successfully sue the LAPD for access to historical records, a lot of which, right, come from the 1960s through the early 2000s, the majority of which, right, covered the war on drugs, right? So that 1980s time. One of the things that we found in our archives, right, that really sort of stood out to me was the school drug buy programs, where they had undercover officers buying and selling drugs to kids so that way they can bust up drug operations. And they would keep track of how much money they spent and how much money they collected from children in schools, right? So
this was like entrapment of students on campuses?
Entrapment of students on high school campuses here in LA, right? So we have the list of schools that they were at. We have, again, like I said, we have dollar amounts for how much they were spending and how much they were selling. And we also know, right, the officers' names. They are LA Times articles featuring these officers where they're getting plaques for buying and selling drugs to kids with it through entrapment.
That's crazy. Dr. Turner, can you give me like an extra 10 minutes? I know you got to go.
Yeah.
I just want to hear the end of what you're telling us. News, traffic, and sports and more on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.